welcome to Blockchange Solidarity, the podcast where we ask what blockchain can do for us. What is blockchain? What is crypto? Could it rescue us from our current dystopia? Come with us as we explore the very real potential to enhance human freedom, and as we delve into the darker side, predicting the Bond-villain potential of this current bleeding edge. Join us, a group of friends, in a pub style as we discuss the overlaps between this technology and politics, economics, the environment, culture and sci-fi, to understand for ourselves the seemingly mysterious futuristic world on our horizon. Steve, how are you, my man? Our compadre Lou can't join us this week, so it's just me and you holding the fort. So how's things?
I'm good, man. You?
Yeah, good. I'm in Guatemala now. Bit overcast. So if it starts to rain, Dallas, you're gonna have a hard job. Dallas is our producer. You're gonna have a hard job editing out the rain. But I'm gonna get soaked if this does happen. So I hope that's not a metaphor for blockchain, that it rains all over us. Oh God. So yeah, Steve. I think just as an introductory episode for people listening, and you're probably thinking, why should I listen to these guys? Like, what makes you different? There's 100 different blockchain crypto podcasts out there. Why don't we have a little chat about, why are we doing this? Like, why do we get involved? What's interesting about this for us? I guess for me, I've been in crypto for not too long, a few years, but it's really only the last year that, from a kind of progressive perspective, me coming from the sort of left of politics, I was interested in, wow, this blockchain technology seems a little bit more than just making money for folks. And so over the last couple of years, I've seen a lot of projects come out, and it seemed exciting. And having read sci-fi books growing up, I was like, okay, this sounds a lot like what I'm reading in those sci-fi books. But of course, there's a lot of concerns around it as well. So I think that's where me and you met heads. We wanted to kind of discuss about, similar interests. What is this technology, or is it dystopic or utopic? Same for you, yeah.
Exactly where I'm at with it. For me, we're very much at a crossroads with this technology. It's the same in most things in the world, if we're honest. The level of technology we're at today across the board, but blockchain seems to be right at the heart of this. And we seem to be at a junction where we can choose utopia or dystopia. Now, admittedly, for many people, the definitions of those things do vary. But ultimately, we're heading for a world with such income disparity that it is like H.G. Wells's Eloy and Morlocks, where the people at the top of the tree can sit on beautiful yachts worrying about staying away from the COVID-infected masses, and the rest of us are just getting on with our lives as best we can, with maybe enough cash to survive a few months if we didn't get a paycheck. So that's the disparity in the world today. What really gets my interest is where the technology is going to take us in the next 10, 20, 50 years. And that's what I mean by being at a junction. We're at a crunch point, I think, where we could have utopia or dystopia truly manifest within that timescale.
And I think that's what's exciting about this technology as well. Like, for me, I haven't always been a technology guy. I can barely tap the keyboard, the right keys on the keyboard half the time. But for me, this technology just seems to be the one technology that could potentially be a little bit sci-fi-esque, So that's what's kind of interesting about it. And, we're going to explore those themes. Like, there's some particular things, and the overall vision ties, as you say, nicely in with some of the books that a lot of our listeners might have read when they were growing up, and even more recent ones. But I want to touch on that thing, something else you just said there, Steve, because I think we are really in a moment right now, and you look everywhere you look, people are suffering in the economy and culture. We're in this culture war, and it just seems to be division everywhere you look, and that's been coming for a long time, since the financial crisis and even before it. And I think people are opening up to new ideas, and they're kind of like, what is this crypto thing, sort of You know, is this just about making money? Like, is it just for the crypto bros online? Or, you know, how do I get involved in this? Like, it seems like, what? You know, how do I even get started? I've spoke to so many folks, like, who are just like, oh, how do I even get started on that? Is it like stocks? And then there's other people who are like, you know, I'm in it a little bit. I buy a little bit. It's not too difficult to invest a little bit, but I'm more interested in what it can do as a technology. Is it liberating? Does it offer that new potential? So I think we can help. We're speaking to those people. We're speaking to people who aren't already in this world, aren't got a lot of money, but who might want to make a little bit of investments out of because their job isn't really paying for much. But they're also like they see the bigger picture. They want to see how the world needs to change and how this technology can change for them. So that's who we're interested in engaging with, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But for me, the bottom line is, while I'm really into imagining and thinking about how things develop and really on the pulse with that, I'm absolutely rubbish when it comes to actually adopting the technology. So I'll tell you a story, right? I first got into blockchain and crypto really early. I'm talking 2011, 2012. And I was following like websites and blogs. It's funny you mentioned you came at this from the left. I originally came at this from the right, believe it or not. Some of the websites I was following were pretty right wing at the time, but they covered really diverse topics. And me being me, I'll listen to all sorts of interesting stuff, and then deal with the source and the attribution later. It's the ideas I'm interested in, right? So I ended up being exposed to this in like 2011, 2012 with, I remember being appalled at some so-called Austrian school economists talking about the virtues of cryptocurrencies. Anyway, so I had a Bitcoin wallet, a crypto wallet rather. I'm talking 2011 or 2012, and I distinctly remember buying a couple of coins. I think Bitcoin was like 15 quid a go then, something like that. Or no, Bitcoin was 100 quid a go. And the smaller currencies were like pence or pounds. And I remember buying a few. I didn't spend much. And I put it on a USB stick, and I haven't seen the USB stick in the best part of 10 years.
Oh, no. I have heard this story before, but it makes me cringe and cry because that's happened to so many people. But have you looked under the couch and up the cat's bum?
Mate, I've moved those so many times. I've taken couches apart. And those poor cats.
And right now you're renovating your house. Now, is that because it needs renovating, or you're actually turning down the walls to see where that USB key is?
To be fair,
oh goodness gracious!
Finding it, I've probably just spent the balance.
you wasn't it back in the days, but people bought pizzas for some bitcoins. Like, I don't know, maybe along the way you were coming back from a night out, Steve, and you paid for some kebabs for those bitcoins. I think we worked it out once. You'd be a multi-millionaire right now.
I never had enough bitcoins to afford a single pizza.
Yeah. Oh.
How much did he spend on that? It was something daft like 10,000 bitcoins.
It was something ludicrous, something like 10,000 bitcoins, which I think bitcoins at 45,000 now. So I'm not the Maz guy, but my head spins at that, you know. But I think just to pick up on another point you made there, that you came at that from the right. Now, I haven't known you too long, but that's interesting. I think that's really nice, because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to bring people from all parts of the spectrum, political spectrum, I should add, left, right, centre, people who don't care about politics maybe all that much, or only a little bit. And I think this technology, and it's people. You see people from the right and the left who are interested in it, and it's bringing people together at least to discuss what it is. So that's interesting. You can bring that perspective that you initially got in it from the right, because I don't know too much of the arguments from the right. I'm more seeing it from the progressive end, but. I think what also our listeners should know is that. Maybe they see it already in Twitter or whatever, is that this technology, the way it's spoke about, crypto, people say like, oh, isn't that just right-wing technology? You know, that's for the right-wing libertarians, like the Peter Thiels of the world, the crypto bros who want to go and like set up a country on a boat somewhere in the Pacific and not pay taxes. But part of our job here is going to be like, no, that's their side of the debate. You know, and there's a whole pile of people who aren't in that circle, who think there's a real potential here for bringing people together, you know, for promoting free speech, for bringing people into the equation, which is what we want. Say, what do you say?
This is exactly what's brought me back into it and piqued my interest again, because when I first got into it, there were only really right-wing commentators discussing it. I'm sure there were left-wing commentators discussing it, but I didn't come across any. So, because I was interested in the technology and other things. I mean, like, they did cover some other mad things. This is way before the days of hydroxychloroquine and QAnon, I hasten to add. But they did cover a wide variety of topics. It was almost like right-wing outreach in a way. So, me being me, I'm not really bothered about the source. I deal with that separately to the ideas in it. If you've got ideas that are worth pursuing, I'll look at them and then, attribute the sources and that later. Check stuff out myself. But that was me 10 years ago. Now, I'm finally seeing it and coming at it from a left angle because I've heard the progressive stance on it. It's very interesting that you were mentioning anarcho-capitalists, because those were the same people on the right. The alt-right, the anarcho-capitalists, these were the fringe elements that were really looking at forward-thinking tech back then, I think.
Yeah, and it starts from somewhere, isn't it? And I think I hear, like, certainly when I talk to people about crypto, people who are open-minded about it, they ask, can this technology be used? Is it neutral? Can it be used for left and right? And as far as I know, but I keep open-minded. For me, it's a blank slate, and it's just like the internet was. You can use it for good and bad, or right and left, or whatever, progressive or repressive. And I think we should tell our audience who are listening, all three of you at this stage, maybe, but we should say, I'm a bit more positive on it than you, Steve. And so we should. You're skeptical. I'm skeptical. Maybe skeptical's not the word. I'm not completely sold, because I think we have a long way to go. We got to work on it to put it in a progressive direction. And people, I should just say, people who want to listen to these, don't think you're just going to be listening to me and Steve agree and glorifying this thing. And we're going to be taking a critical eye, an honest eye to what we see out there, what's being done. And because I think only with honest sort of critique can we say, this is not going in the right direction, or this could be further progressive. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I completely agree with the fact that it has real potential. I'm more wary rather than sceptical. I've not seen any technology in my lifetime that hasn't been used in some way to serve the elite establishment at the expense of the working man. I've never seen that happen, right? So no matter what it is, and yeah, I can tell you a dozen stories I've heard over the years about, I don't know, the guy who invented the first electric car or an air-powered car. It's possible to make a car that runs off air compressors, right? I've seen plans from knocking around for at least 15 years. I've not seen one air-powered car yet. I've read about, Nikola Tesla providing wireless power 100 years ago. Nobody has free wireless power. And the point is that anything that can distribute something that can be charged for will be shut down if possible. I mean, hell, look at all the examples of people that have been prosecuted for file sharing websites, right? We are at such a point technologically where the act of downloading a book for something you can actually afford is viewed as communist redistribution of resources, right? Communist acquisition and redistribution of patented, copyrighted capitalist resources. And I'm quite sure the authors of a lot of these things wouldn't feel that way.
No, correct. You're right. And those words are used to immediately sort of downplay or destroy things that are genuinely good for the public, you know, common ownership, you know, like, you know, there's so many of these words are boogie words, you know, we've been implanted into our minds now for so long, but I think a lot of people, which gives me a little bit of optimism about this technology, is when you see like discussions going on, in this area of blockchain, more and more people are open to such things as common ownership, you know, democracy, getting people involved, you know, and are weary of, you know, when say the likes of look a perfect example, Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse. Yeah, there's the perfect example of maybe how things are changing and people are opening up. His company lost 250 billion. I was almost going to say a million, but a billion. Good grief. Because of this whole metaverse thing and how that seems dystopian. Enough people have read Snow Crash, I think, or enough people are skeptical about corporations in this day and age, and especially Facebook, that they're taking a step back and they're weary. So I think what we want to try and do is just grab that sort of optimism and grab that skepticism of the current system and explain how this technology can go in the right direction, can go in a progressive direction, but only if folks jump into the fight and push it that way, because it ain't going to go there on its own. We need to work and push it that way, right?
And that's exactly what is bringing me to making a podcast with my friend Alex here. The bottom line is that you know, the establishment are working all the time with resources and manpower to devise ways to make these things, any future tech, serve them. It is up to you and me and any of the willing victims who choose to listen to this podcast. It's up to us and people like us to provide an alternative. That's the reality of it. They're always working at finding ways to lock us out, and it's up to us to inspire people to create a viable alternative that liberates mankind instead of uses the chains in a very negative sense. That's how I look at it.
I couldn't have put it better myself, so I won't bother. That was great. I think that's exactly the reason why I'm getting involved, and people are open-minded. People are open-minded. We see it every day. People are, tell me about it. Tell me about this technology. You know, just the other day in another group chat I was in, I think a guy said, you know, tell me how I get involved without having to spend money, because it all seems like I have to just spend money to get involved in democracy. And there's an answer to that, which we'll explore hopefully in the coming episodes, you know, because that's scary, isn't it? That's like, oh no, do you have to spend money to get involved in a democratic way? There's an answer to that. No, you don't. You can get involved and create value with your time or your contribution or your work or whatever. So there's answers there, and people are asking them.
When we first discussed this idea, I said something, was it about a tin of beans or something like that?
Tin of beans. Oh, I love beans. You've just made me think about beans on toast, but I can't remember this. What was it? Tell me again.
I think it was something like, tell me how it helps a guy get a tin of beans for his family or something like that. That's exactly what it comes down to. You know, like most of us are so preoccupied with making ends meet and paying these ever-increasing bills, because they always go up and they never come down. Your wages stay the same or drop. That's the way it works for most people. And if that's the reality you're living in, who's got the time or the money to invest in crypto that isn't already at the top of the food chain? Do you know what I mean? Right.
And who's got the time to participate in a decentral DAO, as we say. We'll explain that in a couple common episodes, but that's a decentralized organization where people can get involved in different projects. And the question is, you know, do I have time? I got a job to do, a family to feed. You know, what do you mean I got time to participate in this organization? What are you talking about? That's all woo-woo for somebody else, but not me, you know? So I think there's answers there. We're going to have to do a good job of explaining it, how this actually helps people, because we're not doing this we're not doing for anybody else but those people, because it's the people who this really needs to help if we're going to change this broken, disastrous system that we're in, and encourage to get involved piece by piece in many different ways, or this is just another throwaway technology that won't last. Needs to get the working people involved, the majority of the people out there, the masses involved. Can't just be in a little elite group who've got money or have got time on their hands, sitting in their in their rooms at home, sipping champagne and Zoom calls. This is not for them. These are for the generations that have been left behind by the financial crisis. People who are annoyed at the system. People who want a positive, uplifting story and how this tech can change their lives, and for everyone.
On that note, Alex, tell us something positive. You lay out for us some positive, beautiful ways in which this could enhance our life.
I want to, but I don't want to give too much away because I want people to stay connected to us. So, and I want people to stay with us, and maybe that's a good teaser for upcoming episodes. We want you to listen in. There'll be plenty of those stories. We want you to join us on the journey. And I suppose just with that, are people worried about the environment, Steve? What do you think? Because that's a big question as well we're going to have to tackle.
What bewilders me about this is that there is definitely, like, I've seen in my short life, right, a difference in the weather where I live, right, in the British Isles. The winters are a lot milder than they used to be, right? The summers are a lot hotter. I've noticed change, right? And then you read all these studies, there's hundreds of them that say the climate is changing, right? Now, my take on this is pretty simple. Most of this argument seems to come down to whether or not it's man-made or not. I think all of that is irrelevant red herring. The reality is the weather's changing, right? Over epochs and eons, it does that regardless of human intervention. When you actually look at the history of this, we are living in the Holocene epoch, right? This is a time when there's enough of a warm area on this planet for species like ours to thrive, yeah? And eventually we're going to come to the end of it. So all of that argument is totally moot, whether it's man-made or not, whether it's happening in the next 50 years or the next 500 years. It's all irrelevant. The choice is dead simple, and it's this. We can act to accelerate climate change, or we can act to decelerate climate change. And the fundamental bottom line is it's in our species' best interest to act to decelerate it. The rest of it, I'll leave to greater minds than mine. But the bottom line is, environment is an issue. You can't escape that. Whether or not you fully subscribe to the fact that climate change is happening, the reality is a lot of other people do. So it's going to be an issue when it comes to consumer choices and business choices and all of these things. Does blockchain have an environmental footprint? Well, I think we all agree it does, because it runs on electrical equipment. It runs on electrical equipment. There is going to be an environmental footprint, because anything you plug into the power grid has an environmental footprint. Anything that uses rare earth components to function and is probably made in some factory in China or wherever else, it's going to have an environmental footprint. Is the device you are accessing this podcast on, did it come on a container ship from the other side of the world, right? Everything, pretty much everything in our lives today has an environmental footprint, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. The question is, how bad is it? And I think that, again, is another spicy topic we'll get into. There's no doubt that cryptocurrency and blockchain is having it has to have an environmental impact. And I think a negative one, but that's a more nuanced debate as to which ones are worse than others, what's happening in that space about going renewable or moving towards less of a bad footprint, I should say. And we can get into that, because I've been reading up about that recently, and my mind's been open a bit about it, even with Bitcoin. I'm like, ooh, I didn't know that. So I think that's definitely a discussion that we'll have to have. The question is, are people worried about the environment, or is that just another concern away from their lives, and their focus now is maybe on getting getting the paycheck in and getting through the next day, and and being, and maybe censorship. So there's another issue, Steve, that maybe people are interested in more. Again, blockchain maybe has an answer for that. So there's all these things that were going on that we'll have to tackle in the coming weeks. I hope you'll stay tuned.
A lot of it is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you've ever heard of that, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it basically says that human beings have a list of needs from the most basic, and you can't achieve your higher aims until your more basic ones are met. And your most basic ones are, well, it's oxygen, isn't it? That's your most basic. And then drinking water. You die within a few minutes without oxygen. You die within a few days without water. You die within a few weeks without food. So you need these basic things. You need security of them before you can worry about things higher up, right? And the bottom line is, people are choosing between heating and eating in some of the most developed countries in the world.
Heating versus eating, yeah, wow. In the most developed countries of the world, never mind the most developing countries of the world, yeah, wow. Does not say it all, really.
How can you worry about whether or not you have a crypto wallet and whether or not blockchain is going to have an environmental impact when you're too concerned with filling your kids with beans?
True, but let me tell you this. Like, I have a friend. Here's just one anecdote, and I don't want to give too much away because there's plenty to come. But I have a friend. He'll remain anonymous for now. He's a middle-aged kind of guy. I would say middle 40s, late 40s. And he hasn't had at all a privileged upbringing. And I met him at a hostel last summer in London. 2 summers ago. Started the pandemic. And he was hard scrabble. He was trying to get by, and he didn't have a job. And his only source of income was playing the piano for this rich family. And he didn't have enough money to wash his clothes. So when he went around to teach the daughter of this rich family the piano, they didn't like the cut of his jip, as we would say back where I'm from. And they didn't invite him back, and they cut him off. I don't even know if they paid him the full amount of money. And he got back to the hostel that night, Steve. We were talking about it, and he's like, man, it's just my life. That's just the way it is. I try. And it was the saxophone, not the piano. Let me correct myself on that. Beautiful player too, beautiful player. And I was like, oh man, how do you survive? And he's like, every little bit of money I've had, I've tried to put it in this new thing, crypto, because I don't trust those banks, I don't trust any of those corporations, but this crypto thing appeals to me. And my friends talk about it in our little circles in the hostel, and we just put a little bit of money in, a little bit we can afford every month over the last couple of months, and it's come off Alex in the last year, and he's surviving. He's not doing well, he's surviving. But if he didn't have that little bit of gains from those little bit of investments on crypto over the last couple of years, and thank God it's boomed for him over the last couple of years, he'd be destitute, He really would be. So there's loads of little stories like that, man. We can help articulate on this podcast. Plenty of stories out there, but that's the thing. Crypto for a lot of people is that little bit on the side for if they don't have a job. And they see it booming right now. They see that it doesn't really cost them much to get involved, like the stock market. They can go in and buy some crypto, it barely costs them a penny. Get out, sell it, barely costs them a penny in commission. And they're like, you know what? This is something for me. And I'm seeing some returns from this, and I can get myself through the next day. So there's stories to be told. I think it's our job to tell them, open up people's minds, get more people involved.
That's exactly the bread and butter of it, though, isn't it? That is exactly what it comes down to. Keeping somebody in a situation where they have a roof over their head and they can be fed and be warm, when too many people are falling through the cracks these days. I mean, you and I both come from countries where, a medical bill isn't likely to cost you your house and make you file for bankruptcy, which is a massive privilege in this world of ours. And I'm not afraid of that word. I enjoy it's such a privileged life. It's unbelievable. At least we can do is acknowledge our fortune there, isn't it? Reality is, if some little thing that you can do with a few quid here and there can make a difference and help you pay your bills and make your life easier, that's what we need to be on.
We do, and is there routes for people to pull what little money they have together to get some healthcare for each other? Is there, as we said, a decentralized autonomous organization? What that DAO word again that everyone's probably like, what's this DAO thing he's talking about? People get together, pool their resources, and help each other out in that organizational form. Or there's such a thing as play to learn, where people are getting paid in some crypto tokens every time they take an online course. That's revolutionary, Steve. Normally you had to pay for education. Right now, blockchain's offering people to get paid to get educated or to learn a skill or whatever it is. Look, I'm not saying it's for everyone. Let's talk through it. Let's go through examples. But I think we're agreed. Our main reason for doing this is to speak to people who are interested, people who are pissed off with the current system, who want the way out and are open-minded and want to listen to us have a bit of a chat about this. So, what do you think? Should we wrap it up there and just hope that any listeners that we do have? Oh. Go ahead.
There's one thing I'd like to add to that. Yeah, that's our main reason for doing it. But the second biggest reason is that we're here to learn about it too. So we want people to tell us the amazing things about it that we haven't picked up on. Because you and I, we have busy lives. We've not been able to sit down and read the entire libraries of content on blockchain and crypto and all of that. So, we're going to be looking to people to extol these things to us. We're learning here too, is the point, Alex. We're not coming in here as experts. We're coming in here as average Joes who are open-minded about a potential really positive future. I do want to put the fear of God into people before they go, though, because everything I've seen, what you mentioned earlier on about Facebook and Meta, about controlling all this data. Everything I've seen has always been used by the establishment to lock people like you and me out of the real gains. So what we have to gain here is clear. It is a real stake in a viable future for all of humanity. What we have to lose is also bigger stakes than we've ever seen, because Facebook is visibly a centralised thing that controls so much data, and it controls elections with the stuff that it's got, right? Now, we're talking about moving things to another level of technology that the average Joe, like you and I, don't fully understand. And before we get that understanding in place, there's a real risk the establishment will have already done so. If we end up with like one all-encompassing Facebook-style blob, corporate blob that controls so much of the data on this blockchain, and this is one of my fears, all they need to do that is to capture a few nodes, because the nodes contain copies of like the whole mass, don't they? So if they capture nodes and nodes of private blocks and whatever, then all of the data and all of the information and everything can be won in a way that it could never be with other things. So my point is, there's disastrous potential as well as utopian potential, and it's up to people like you and I to figure out how to make the good reality come out and not the bad one.
That's so true, and we should say potential being the big word there. There's a utopian potential. We're going to explore what it is. We've seen what it could be. We remain unconvinced. We're seeing it could go, but we need to work towards it. We're not selling anything yet, but at the same time, the dystopia, as Steve says, on the dark side, is dark. So it's light, potentially, dark, potentially. So as you say, Steve, this seems like this isn't just some little battle anymore. This is serious stuff. We're at a turning point now, and as you say, it could really dark, really light. How about this? And so I think, yes, you're right. Everyone who's listening in, tell us what you think. Engage with us. You've got us on all these different podcast platforms. Engage, comment, tell us what you think of crypto, good or bad. Tell us some stories of what you've heard. We'd love to hear from you. Steve, how about ending on this, if you can? Do you know of any sci-fi example where any book or movie, in your experience, where this central question, the plot line has come to this is it going to go light or dark, and there's a battle between the good and the bad, and it's turned one way or the other? Is there such example? Maybe there isn't. Is there an example out there that we can refer to?
Well, mate, you've literally just described the central plot of all sci-fi in its essence. In fact, all drama. You pick a story and that conflict in its most basic. Be it Lord of the Rings, it's the forces of good versus the forces of evil. Be it Star Wars, where Luke Skywalker faces down the Emperor with his dad stood in the middle. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's the future, the past, that is the essence of all drama right there. Can I think of one that had this specific tech question? Not off the top of my head, but it is an epic battle of good and evil.
Maybe where technology, instead of good or bad, because you're right, every sci-fi is good or bad, but where tech sits in the middle, and whether the tech is co-opted by the dark forces or tech is co-opted by the good forces, that's the plot line.
That's the Matrix. There. That's the Matrix right there.
The Matrix. Oh, God. That went over my head right there, eh? You're right, innit? Right. The Matrix it is. What a perfect metaphor for the world that we're living in right now. And, yeah, there we go. Missed that one. Maybe we can talk more about that in future episodes as well. You probably know a lot more about that than me. Have you seen the new one?
I have, yeah.
You have? I haven't yet, so maybe I should get cracking on that too.
I redistributed it from the patent owning, copyright owning overlords for the greater good of humanity. It's all right, I did enjoy it, but let's be honest about it. The best Matrix film was the first one, and nothing else has been matching it.
There was nothing else compares. You're right. That one was the one that everyone says that first one was the one that mattered, and it went downhill from there.
Truly excellent piece of cinema, that.
Wonderful. Well, let's wrap it up there, Steve. Hopefully that gives people an insight into what this is going to look like. I hope you'll join us on the journey. We'll get people on, whether it be friends or other people who we think could be interesting to have a chat with, similar to this kind of chat that we're having. We'll do this every 2 weeks. We'll try and keep it short and entertaining, snappy, but informative as well. That's the main thing. And we'd love your engagement. We'd love you to come on this journey with us. We're just learning, as you say. Nobody's an expert. I can barely read through an article without, getting distracted by a butterfly. So, this is we're on this journey with you as well. We're certainly not experts. So, yeah, Steve, unless you've anything else to say, we'll wrap it up there and join us next week, folks.
Yeah, basically we're the rebellion, and we're trying to fight down the evil forces of the dark side, aren't we?
We are. And I'm Luke Skywalker, and who are you?
Oh, I don't know. I don't like the sound of my own voice, though, so I'll happily play.
It's fine. I could listen to you all day, Steve. I don't know what the audience will think, but they're probably like, what was that? I can't understand a word those guys said.
What are these two fucking idiots doing?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Where's these three loons from? They're from a different planet. They're from the future. Oh,
Come on, I'm British and he's Irish. Just be happy we're sober.
Say, speak for yourself. I'm not sober. All right.
Way to challenge the stereotype there, Alex.
But before this goes well and truly off the rails, if it hasn't already,
he's literally in the pub right now, guys. He's
ding ding. Oh, there's the bell. Right. Okay. We'll leave it up to our producer who's listening in, Dallas, to try his best to edit this into something that people will listen to. But let's wrap it up there, folks. Steve, great to chat with you. Let's do it again next week. See you, buddy. All right, folks. Bye.